So guys, during the Xbox Games Showcase this year, one game in particular stood out to me. Not because of the game itself, but because of the studio behind it. That being Gamefreak. You know, the company most widely known for making the Pokémon video games. And the reason it stood out to me was because this new game actually looks somewhat visually good. Something that I sadly can't say about the most recent Pokémon game. And I remember seeing a beat 'em ups video where he went into way more detail about the newest Pokemon game, Pokemon ZA, and primarily focused on the question of why these games look so bad visually if Pokemon as a franchise makes so much money. The video itself was called Why Are Pokemon Games So Outdated, and it's a really good watch. But this new game, Beast of Reincarnation, if it is made by the same company, how come the new game looks so good whilst Pokemon titles look like this? Well, this comes down to one key factor, and that is that the game isn't technically made by the same people that make Pokemon, even though it kind of is. It's actually made by a seemingly smaller group of devs within Gamefreak under the Gear Project Initiative banner. This Gear Project Initiative, from how I understand it anyway, is where devs from within Gamefreak can come up with ideas freely, get them into the midway stages of development, and then from there, see if the games are worth making or not. And from the looks of it, this Beast of Reincarnation game was one of those games. But it isn't the only game to come out this way. Other games like Harmonite, Tembo the Badass Elephants, and Giga Wrecker are just a few games that were released via this Gear Project Initiative. And it isn't just this Gear Initiative team working on the game, as it's also being published by a new company called Fictions, who to be honest I don't know all that much about, and that's mainly down to them being a newly established publisher, so there isn't really much else I can say about them, so let's instead talk about this new game, Beast of Reincarnation. From the description of the game on Steam, the game is set in a post-apocalyptic Japan, a land ruined by corruption and crawling with monstrous beasts. Humanity's last hope may rest with Emma, an outcast cursed as a blighted one, and her loyal canine companion, Ku. Survive a journey across an ominous, ever-changing world where dangerous forests can erupt in the wasteland. As Emma and Ku push deeper into the unknown, their bond strengthens, and with it, strange powers bloom. Explore what it means to be human in Beast of Reincarnation, an expansive one-person, one-dog action RPG built around demanding technical combat. Now, from that and the gameplay trailer, it's easy to see the huge difference between this game and Pokémon. But the fact that Game Freak is being shown here as the main developer, it's going to generate a lot of questions, mainly in the why does this game look so good visually whilst Pokemon looks bad department. Now, this being said, I did notice some of the frame rate drops within the trailer, but when compared to the finished product that is Scarlet and Violet, it's like a night and day difference. Also, from the trailer, you can see the texturing within this game is also just much better. Now, I don't know if this is due to where the game takes place in a crowned forest, the general art style, or what, but from what I can see anyway, there is no visual indicator that the same very small texture has just been copied and pasted over an item. Everything here just looks how it's supposed to within the game itself. And this, to me, just has me scratching my head as to then why Pokemon games look so bad. And we can't just blame it all on the power of the Switch 1, because even when playing Scarlet and Violet on Switch 2, yes, the frame rate is better, but the general visuals, like texturing of the world anyway, are still just bad. So I don't know if this is a budget thing, which I highly doubt because it's Pokémon, which is one of the most successful franchises in gaming, or if it's just a Game Freak thing. But then it can't be a Game Freak thing because some of the devs working within this Gear Initiative team have worked on past Pokémon games. For example, the director of Beast of Reincarnation is Kota Furushima, now I'm sorry if I'm saying that name wrong, who worked on past battle systems for Pokémon Ultra Sun and Moon and Pokémon Sword and Shield. And they were also a sound manager for Pokémon Legends Arceus and Pokémon Scarlet and Violet. So if it's not a budget or Game Freak issue, then does the fault lay at Nintendo's feet? Is Game Freak under too much pressure with having to keep up with the Pokemon game's demanding schedule of releasing a new game almost every year? That being said, the newest game, ZA, seems to have gone a different route, with them seemingly being given an extra year almost to work on the game. So maybe Nintendo saw the feedback from Scarlet and Violet and made the call to delay the game, because if ZA were to follow the pattern of past Pokemon releases, then it should have launched sometime last year. Or maybe Nintendo just wanted to have the newest Pokemon game launched the same year as their newest console. Either way, I don't work there, and I don't think Nintendo or the Pokemon company would ever reveal the answer to a question like that. So it's all just speculation on my part. But with Game Freak having more time to cook with ZA, maybe the game, at least on Switch 2 anyway, will be a somewhat more stable game when it comes to visuals and frame rate. But that being said, considering ZA is still being made for the Switch 1 and not a Switch 2 exclusive, my hopes for that are slowly going down the drain, because it's probably still going to be a similar situation to Scarlet and Violet, but hopefully just not as bad, at least on the newest hardware. And this by no way means that I want a Pokemon game to look like Beast of Reincarnation, because I think that would be terrifying. And I do really like the cartoony art style that these 3D Pokemon games have. I think my dream would be for Game Freak to either make a really beautiful 3D Pokemon game on the level of something like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, with a fully open world region and a way for me to seamlessly play with my friends or see other players within the world, kind of like an MMO but for Pokemon. Or maybe something like Power World. Now I know that game has been scrutinized for like copying some stuff from Pokemon, but it does paint a picture of what a open world, seamlessly play with your friends, adventure style version of Pokemon could be like. And I feel like that would be a really, really cool thing to see Game Freak develop for the Pokemon franchise in general. Or for them to at least go back to the style that they had in the Black and White games, as I really liked how Pokemon looked in those games with their 2D sprites and unique animations, which I have to say would be a huge improvement for at least some of the Pokemon within the most recent games. All that said, when it comes to the newest Pokemon game, ZA, once again, I don't think we should set our expectations too high, as it's still being made for the Switch 1, so all eyes anyway in terms of getting a visually pleasing and smoothly running Pokemon game are all on the next generation, that being Generation 10, whatever that ends up being officially called, as Gen 10 should most likely be a Switch 2 exclusive, meaning that it is only made for the Switch 2 and isn't being dragged down by the Switch 1 hardware. And after seeing what Game Freak are capable of making for the newest generation of hardware in the form of Beast of Reincarnation, my expectations for whatever Generation 10 of Pokemon is have been lifted ever so slightly. But just to be on the safe side, I'm still going to keep my expectations relatively in check for what I expect a Pokemon game to be, because if I'm being honest, it's probably still not going to look too great, but I'm still going to buy it anyway. And I think that's all I have to really say on the topic of the Pokemon Company, Game Freak, and their newest game, Beast of Reincarnation. So if you enjoyed this video or found it in any way insightful, if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel, I'd very much appreciate it. And also leave your thoughts on Game Freak's newest game and what expectations you now have for their next upcoming Pokemon game. And also I know this is a different style of video than what I would normally make, so any support would be greatly appreciated, and would let me know that you would enjoy to see more of this style of content. Either way though, that's it from me, so once again, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next one.